If you'd rather fight a bear than attend a crowded concert, congratulations. Your brain just saved you from a psychological nightmare most people are too distracted to notice. And no, you're not damaged. You're not antisocial. You're not too much. You're just seeing something everyone else is blind to. Picture this, it's Saturday night. Your phone buzzes. Hey, we're all meeting at that new downtown spot. Super packed, but the vibe is amazing. And instantly, something inside you shuts down, not because you hate fun. Not because you don't like people. But because your brain just did the math. Noise, crowds, unpredictability, forced conversations, overstimulation, and it quietly decided the emotional cost isn't worth the experience. You're not broken. You're not boring. And you're definitely not the problem. Your psychology is just playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. So let's talk about what's really happening in that beautifully complicated brain of yours. First, your brain has zero chill, and that's not a flaw. That's intelligence. Most people's brains come with a spam filter. They walk into a crowded room and automatically delete 90% of the input. Ignore the flickering lights. Ignore the overlapping conversations. Ignore the stranger laughing too loud behind them. Your brain doesn't do that. Your brain screenshots everything. Every shift in body language. Every micro-expression that flashes across a stranger's face. Every change in tone. Every subtle inconsistency between what someone says and what they mean. Scientists call this sensory processing sensitivity, which is a fancy way of saying your nervous system notices everything and refuses to let it go. It's like everyone else is watching life in low resolution, and you're stuck with an 8,000 ultra-high definition experience you never asked for. Research suggests around 20% of the population has this heightened sensitivity. That means 1 in 5 people is walking around with a nervous system permanently set to observe everything. And here's the part. Most people don't understand. Your brain doesn't just collect this information. It stores it, organizes it, and revisits it later. That awkward interaction from 3 weeks ago that nobody else remembers? Your brain filed it under possibly relevant and keeps pulling it up for review. That's not overthinking. That's pattern recognition. Your neural network is doing exactly what it evolved to do. Detect meaning, spot danger, connect dots others miss entirely. And here's the wild part. This trait kept humans alive for thousands of years. While the extroverts were relaxing around the campfire, your ancestors were the ones who noticed the predator approaching. Who recognized the poisonous plant? Who sensed something was off before it became obvious? You're not too sensitive. You're exactly what survival needed. The problem isn't your brain. The problem is that modern society wasn't designed for people who actually pay attention. And that's only the first layer. Because next, we're going to talk about why crowds don't drain you because you dislike people, but because you can see through them. Here's the second thing most people misunderstand about you. You're not antisocial. You're anti-BC. Let's get one thing straight. You don't hate people. You hate performance. In crowded places, almost everyone is acting. There's the I'm having so much fun mask, the I'm totally listening mask, the I'm fine, everything's great mask while their jaw is clenched and their eye is twitching. And you can see all of it, not because you're judgmental, but because your brain is constantly translating the real conversation happening underneath the words, the body language, the pauses, the energy, the things nobody says out loud. Psychologists call this high perceptual sensitivity, which is a polite way of saying your emotional radar is terrifyingly accurate. You don't just hear what people say. You feel what they mean. So while everyone else is enjoying the surface-level exchange, your brain is working overtime, decoding contradictions, noticing tension, sensing when something doesn't add up. It's exhausting. Not because you're shy, but because you're paying attention. This is why small talk feels unbearable. It's not that you can't do it. You can. You just experience it the same way most people experience chewing cardboard. Your nervous system craves substance, depth, real connection. And when you're forced into shallow conversations, it's like asking a philosopher to get excited about discussing the weather. Technically possible, emotionally painful. You'd rather have one honest conversation at 3 a.m. than attend 50 networking events where everyone is performing their highlight reel. And here's the part people get wrong. That's not a flaw, that's integrity. In fact, a study from Cambridge University found that people who prefer solitude often score significantly higher in emotional intelligence than their crowd-loving counterparts. Translation? You're not socially inept. You're socially sophisticated. You just refuse to fake enthusiasm for interactions that feel empty. This is why crowds drain you faster than others. It's not the noise alone. It's the emotional translation happening in the background. Your brain is constantly asking, is this real? Is this honest? Is this worth the energy? And most environments fail that test. But here's where things get even more interesting. Because your discomfort in crowds isn't just about people. It's also about chemistry. Your brain isn't built to chase stimulation the way others are. And that brings us to the third layer, the one that explains why social chaos feels boring instead of exciting to you, because your dopamine system quietly opted out. Here's where your brain gets genuinely interesting. For most people, dopamine runs the show. Dopamine is the brain's reward chemical. It lights up when there's novelty, excitement, social stimulation, chaos. Walk into a party and extroverted brains throw a dopamine parade. Fireworks, confetti, energy everywhere. Your brain? Crickets. Not because it's broken, but because it's tuned to a different system. Instead of dopamine-driven reward, your nervous system leans heavily on acetylcholine, a quieter neurotransmitter. One that rewards focus, introspection, depth, and sustained attention. This is why crowded environments don't excite you. They overload you. And this is why quiet environments do something magical to your mind. Reading alone at midnight. Taking a slow walk with no destination. Sitting in a quiet room, doing nothing. To other people, that looks empty. To your brain, it's fuel. While others need external stimulation to feel alive, you need internal space to access your full operating system. And neuroscience backs this up. Studies have found that introverted brains often show thicker gray matter in the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for planning, reflection, and complex thinking, which means something counterintuitive is happening. When you look inactive, your brain is working harder than most, processing, connecting, reorganizing, creating. You're not wasting time. You're composing symphonies in your head while everyone else is listening to elevator music. That's not weird. That's evolutionary brilliance. And this explains something else you've probably noticed about yourself. You don't need constant novelty. You don't crave stimulation for its own sake. You're content revisiting the same ideas, the same books, the same thoughts. Not because you're stuck, but because depth reveals more every time you return to it. Now add another layer. Your brain doesn't just process information deeply. It processes emotions deeply too. Which brings us to something most people never talk about. You're basically an emotional Wi-Fi router. You walk into a room and immediately sense when something's off. Even when everyone's smiling. Even when nothing obvious is wrong. That's because your mirror neuron system is highly active. You don't just observe emotions. You absorb them. Spend an hour in a crowd, and you're not just managing your own feelings. You're unintentionally downloading everyone else's stress, excitement, anxiety, and tension. It's psychological overload. Your nervous system is trying to process hundreds of emotional signals at once, while also remembering to breathe. No wonder you need days to recover from a 2-hour event. But here's the part people miss. This sensitivity isn't a curse. It's a superpower most people couldn't handle. You understand subtext. You read between the lines, you sense what people need before they say it. Most people barely understand their own emotions. You're out here understanding everyone else's, and that level of awareness comes at a cost, but it also comes with clarity. Which brings us to the final layer. Because your preference for solitude isn't about escaping life. It's about moving toward yourself. You're not running from life. You're running toward yourself. Society has a strange obsession with equating noise with meaning, busy with successful, loud with happy, visible with valuable. So if you're not everywhere, if you're not posting constantly, if you're not surrounding yourself with people every chance you get, it quietly assumes you're failing. But here's what most people never realize. You figured out something early, something many people spend decades avoiding. Silence isn't empty. It's where clarity lives. Solitude isn't loneliness. It's where you actually meet yourself without an audience. You're not missing out on life. You're opting out of a system that was never designed for minds like yours. Minds that think deeply, feel deeply, notice deeply. The quietest rooms often hold the loudest truths. And that's why crowds feel overwhelming. Not because you're weak, but because you're open. You don't numb yourself with noise. You don't drown discomfort in distraction. You sit with it, you listen. That takes strength most people underestimate. So the next time someone asks, why don't you go out more? Remember what they're really asking. They're asking why you don't drain yourself to fit into spaces that were never built for your nervous system. You're not broken, you're not boring, you're not antisocial. You're built for depth in a world obsessed with surface. And that difference matters. It means you value quality over quantity, presence over performance, understanding over attention. It means your peace isn't isolation. It's liberation. You don't need constant stimulation to feel alive. You need meaning, and you've learned that meaning doesn't shout. It whispers. That's why you hear it when others don't. That's why your life might look quieter from the outside. But from the inside, it feels steady, intentional, real. And if this resonated, it's not an accident. People like you tend to share more than just one trait. You process information differently. You notice patterns others overlook. You sense things before they're obvious. In the next video, we're going to explore one of those patterns. The one that explains why you think slower but deeper, why you pause before reacting, and why that might be your greatest, quietest advantage. If you felt seen here, you already know what's next. The next video will feel even more familiar.